Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to Free Talk with MrB. This is MrB, and this is our group. It's a wonderful group that gives us a view. Today, we're taking on the subject marriage, and marriage, how it gives back to the community is from the art of giving back. Free Talk with MrB covering the nuggets, the art of giving back nuggets. And this nugget is an important nugget, and let's see how we can handle it. Sameena.
Sure, definitely. MrB was looking forward to this conversation today with, of course, my co-speakers here, Ms. Dedra, as well as Professor Mia, who have joined us. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking out the time for, again, coming on this podcast. So yes, we are going to be talking about how marriage gives back to the community. There's a lot. And mind you, we're not going to be advising anyone in terms of, how you need to be in your marriage, because everyone who's married is an adult and they ought to be, mature in their own thinking and the way they're giving back to each other. But these are, again, just perspectives and positive thoughts, which we would like to share with the rest of our audience and the world. So to begin with, yes, I'm not married, but then I know kind of marriage gives a lot back to the community. It, I think, gives an opportunity to both the lady as well as the man to be able to step out of their own space and walk into the other person's space and try to understand each other's space. And that's when, the actual marriage happens in terms of the thoughts. It's not just the ceremonies, which we need to see when it's marriage. It's more than that. But I think I would love to hear from all of you guys. Let's start with Mr. B. What do you think?
When it comes to marriage, I try not to think, but I brought it up as a nugget in the book. And a gentleman already started giving feedback. He was on my messenger today, and he was asking, or thinking he was confused about marriage, even maybe without even trying. I wrote in the nugget, says, when you take vows with your beloved, you are accepting his or her family too. You are accepting his or her community too. Marriage is never an isolated union. And what I mean by it is that it ricochets throughout the world. The marriage arrangement sets the tone for the household, for the community, for companies and how they operate, for countries and how they operate, and it ricochets throughout the world, how the world should operate. And so it's a subject worth discussing, and it's a form of giving back when we discuss the nuggets of giving back. What are we giving back in marriage, and how it's going to impact the world?
Yes. Ms. Dedra, what do you think marriage gives back to the community? Some aspects from your side.
Well, I have a slightly different take. I mean, I agree with what you said, Mr. B. I mean, and it's extremely true when you're talking about a healthy marriage. That I think we need to draw that that important distinction there. I myself, I was the child of a divorced family, a divorced couple, and I can very safely say there's no two people in the world who should have ever stayed together for children more than my parents. I mean, it's good that they divorced when they did. The only thing I can say is I wish they divorced even sooner. We would have been less scathed. And I think the community would have even been better off if they had divorced way sooner before things got really nasty. So I think that when you're talking about a very healthy marriage, you help the community in two ways. First of all, you model, a really loving union. You model that to everyone around you. And I think that gives people hope, especially maybe single people who are thinking, gosh, I wonder if I'm ever going to find love, if I'm ever going to find, someone I want to make a family with, and should I take the leap, because divorce is scary, I mean, it might actually, seeing a happy couple that's been married for decades is hopeful, positive, healthy thing, so it's very good to set that example. And also on an individual level, because as I see it, marriage, a really good marriage is when you found someone who makes you the best you that you can possibly be. So, I mean, I think that on an individual level, you thrive when you're with the right person, because the person loves you enough to want you to grow and spread your wings and be the brightest version of you. So that's also an example on an individual level, because you touch people when you do that, when you shine, right?
Yes, absolutely agree with you. And it gives an opportunity to appreciate the companionship itself of each other. Professor Mia,
Exactly.
how is it on your side? And I'm sure you've seen diverse communities and diverse diversity in different ways living in that part of South Africa. Please tell us about what is your perspective on this.
Yes, absolutely. And more so, what I'd like to I'd just like to rewind a little bit in order to get to the point of what I want to get to. And that is that when two people are getting married, it's normally like it's a huge celebration, whether it's here or anywhere in the world. And it's the coming together of two people. So if we look at that, when we start there, that's two individuals who are getting married. And at that point, you need to obviously be people that respect each other's individuality. You need to respect where each one is coming from and what makes up who that person is. That entails also family, background, whatever has happened, whatever your dreams are, etc., etc. So you're bringing together two families, literally two families from two separate communities that are now becoming one. Once this marriage takes place, that couple is going to be moving into a community. That community that either saw that guy growing up or her growing up alone is now seeing them as a couple. What happens with that couple, they're obviously going to be ups and downs in every marriage. The ideal is to be able to grow through the ups and downs, and you grow each other, you grow together. You grow to become better together. And
Mhm.
as they were saying, it's ideal to be able to have someone as a partner who wants to grow you for you, to benefit you, not as an agenda for what they can benefit off from you. So ideally, marriage is supposed to be the give and take of I grow with you and we grow together. Sometimes, like in my instance, for example, your spouse and you share similar dreams. One, for example, might be that you want to help build your community. So you grow into you build a little community organization that tries to give back to the community. What does the community need that you are in? He probably grew up in a space that was not good. You grew up with a similar challenge. You want to now develop something that makes people not have to adhere to what you went through. So in that instance, yes. But the key factor for me in terms of marriage is the art of respect. Respect for values, respect for individuality, respect for what you're saying, respect for you as who you are, respect even your disagreement. Because even in that sense is where you will become the models for community, and that is how you will be able to give back. People love to see, oh, okay, there's a new people, let's see them. They see you in a mall, they see you driving on. I mean, you just become an icon, so to speak. And here in South Africa, like you were saying, there's diverse cultures. Yes, you're seeing mixed marriages. You see mixed marriages across the globe now. Still till today, however, you will find, and I see this in many, many instances on the global platforms I'm on, you will find that it's not an accepted as much as we'd like it to be an accepted. So as much as a couple will endure whatever they need to because they're mixed marriage, they still will get the stare here and there. And if they have children that walk along with them, the children then have to endure that too.
Yeah.
But that is their growing process and it's their strength.
I
It
like
is
that
in their
word.
strength. So that's
Yeah, Mia, you're using the word grow, and I like that word because it's something that's a form of giving back. You're giving back growth. Sometimes getting married means you're
yes.
growing. The young man who wrote this morning from Kenya said, I could have risen, but I don't understand marriage after my previous situation. I didn't ask him the situation, but I wrote, it's a commitment to learn about another human. As soon as you learn something, you realize there is more to learn. And a progressive growth
Yes.
of learning until the day you die. And that's what I told him what marriage was. So I knew he didn't understand, but it was, we think we're learning about the other person, but gosh, we're learning so much about ourselves when we get into it. And Sameena, interestingly enough, it's this kind of conversation is for people who are married and unmarried, seeing that it's going to impact the community. When you go to work, you learn, they learn from you, you learn from them. When diplomats are talking about world events, they learn from each other. A manager in a company, we're learning from our employees, and employees are learning from the manager. And so the growth is like a marriage relationship in every case. And so the respect is like a marriage relationship, every facet, even the what do you call Dedra, the separation. Sometimes if your company is not working out for you, like a marriage, sometimes if they're abusing you or something like that, you put up with it, but then sometimes you have to leave it behind. And
Exactly.
so it's a total reflection of the globe, I thought. And so that's why I think this conversation can be amazing for us to keep talking about this week and next week on this subject.
Yes.
Well, I think so too. And I'm glad you agree that sometimes it is a good thing to model to kind of leave that situation, especially if it's not working, because I think that there's still way too much stigma, attached to divorce. And, there's a reason that it's allowed, to divorce. It's a shame. It's not a great thing. It's a painful thing to go through, of course, but you have to consider what you're modeling, not just to your community, but your own family, and to, if a woman stays in a marriage where she's being abused by a man, she's saying that it's okay, to accept that sort of behavior. And what does that do for the women in her life? It says to the women in her life also that it's okay to accept that kind of behavior, and vice versa. If a woman is, horribly behaved and, abuses the trust of a man, he hangs on to that, even though he's terribly damaged, by her in some way. What is he saying? He's saying that it's okay. It's okay to accept that, it's not. It's not. It's all right to value yourself as well. You have to consider that. I'm sorry. Sometimes I have to play devil's advocate on this show because
we all respect you for that.
Not all.
Yes.
Thank
but
you.
I did want to get back to
Life
Sameena.
isn't all peaches and cream, and
no,
then
it's not.
we
it's
need
not.
to make sure that we represent it fully.
I'm a peaches and cream kind of guy.
I know you are. I know. And we like that about you.
No, Sameena, from the outside looking in, if you're saying you're looking into the institution of marriage, we're throwing back a question at Jude. Is it setting an example for all facets of the world? And is it, how would you say it? Is it a form of giving back, or are we misaligning our thoughts?
Yes, definitely. I think we also need to talk about how after marriage, the couple is giving back to their own children, and in doing so, they are giving back to the world, because a stable family, is able to grow their children in a very stable fashion and give them a sustainable life ahead, and do whatever it takes. It's not like both of you just said, in terms of, if there's something toxic, even not tolerating the toxic environment is a lesson for the children. So they do not accept any toxicity anywhere. It could be at their school, it could be at their college or their workplace, or even in their own marriage. That lesson taught, if the mother or the father has taken that step, it is for good. I know so many of my friends who have done that, my own sisters. But then it's we just pray and we hope and we try to mend it and mend it and mend it. But after a point, it's like I think it's better not to try to mend it anymore because you're losing all your
Exactly.
energies. Yeah, you're losing all your energies, and it's more damage than good for the entire family.
Exactly.
You
If
know,
the
it's
situation is doing more damage than healing, and if it's not any benefit to anyone, it really is better for everyone involved to end it. And sometimes parents, a couple can be wonderful co-parents separately better, and they get along as friends better than they would as marriage partners.
Hmm.
Like I said, I certainly wish my parents had divorced very, very fast, a lot faster than they did.
if I have to look just quickly at a scenario of children, for example, there's a program that I do in schools, and we've now done this in quite a few different countries as well. So it's kind of where we get involved in the school structure because of the various GBV matters that are happening across the globe. One of the ways we thought of starting to address it, and I started implementing it here, was to start by letting kids talk about what GBV is because they live through it and they don't have the channel to talk. So when you go to a school and you speak to kids, it's amazing the stories kids come up with or speak of regarding what happens at home. And then when you meet a parent at parents' meeting, it's a totally different somebody that you are meeting as opposed to what the child says. So there alone is, I ask two questions. I always ask when they bring me to speak to a child, or if they're giving me history about a child, or et cetera, et cetera. I always ask, how involved are the parents in the school? How involved are the parents in the child's meetings that the schools are having? Very often you have the two parents, there's a child at a school, one parent will attend the meeting, alternatively none will attend. And then you wonder why. And then you ask the child, so what do you have to say about this? And the children will always say, well, I just wish they had time. They just always quarreling, they're always too busy and stuff like that. So it's amazing the kind of impact our lives and our lifestyle is having on those around us. And I mentioned the schooling because the school is part of community. And when we talk about what marriage is giving back to a community, via your children, you are giving back to schools, community. Those kids are going into school and interacting with other kids. Those kids are interacting with teachers. How you are at home is actually becoming the vision that the children are replaying out there to the world. So how are
Exactly.
you in your couplehood giving back to community right now?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my gosh, this
I
is
agree
so
with that.
and so impactful because as a husband, I mean, I've been married for 40 years, and that's a big 40. And I've
Wow.
learned a lot about myself and so on. I had to go to work for many of those years, almost all of them, right? And how I feel about being married, I think it had an impact on my workplace. And so the school, oh my gosh, we can have podcasts about this particular subject forever, right? Because it goes in so many directions. But when a husband, when a wife, when we go to work, how our marriage is flourishing helps define how we're going to perform at work and how we're going to reflect or give back even to the employer and the colleagues you're working with. And so I tried that to be my motto.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried not to impact my marriage by what was going on at work. But you can see how it can go both ways, how it can impact the community, how it can affect us. And sometimes we have to say, whoa, stop. And so that's where Dedra comes in. We have to say sometimes, wait a minute, let's reevaluate what's going on and what we're doing. Sameena?
Yes, absolutely. I'm just kind of absorbing a lot of learning, which I'm going to be taking from this session for my future.
See, we're impacting Sameena right now. Our behavior, we're modeling for her.
Of course.
I think it's also really, really important when you're in a marriage to be able to talk and to talk freely. To be able to voice what you like, what you don't like, agree to disagree. It's so important because that communication level is what grows you. Like we're talking about the growth. And once you're able to do that, you're able to really stand together, even if it's outside of your home, in terms of anything that might come up. And in that sense of agreeing to disagree in a very way,
Oops.
It's really important. Communication is a key. Communication and respect for me in the marriage. Really is.
I think we may have some
I think
audio problems.
Yeah, I think you're breaking up a bit from South Africa, but I think we got the point of agreeing to agree was a big point, and making sure that you can be heard in the relationship is important. Now, I of course, us men, we always have to work on that because we're so selective listeners. but the point being is sometimes I see it's an audience of one when I'm speaking to my wife or when my wife is speaking to me. So I ask her to adjust for the audience, knowing how I am, what kind of listener I am. But what an important point, Mia, to realize that we need to constantly respect the views of our spouses in the marriage, which would help us as we go out of our home to respect the view of others in school, at work, and in the greater community at home.
Yes.
Also, your children, do you know that, well, my husband's a psychologist and I pick up a lot of stuff along the way. And you know that your children unconsciously search for someone to marry that is a lot like, their mom or their dad. So without my sons even knowing it, most likely they'll look for a woman who reminds them a lot of me. And it's very important that I represent, the kind of person that I would like to see, them, a happy person, a vibrant person, that they would like to find. And men the same, that was kind of a problem for me, actually, when I was looking for someone to have a relationship with. I think there was a red flag there for me. I wanted to find someone who is the polar opposite of my father, and I on purpose searched for that, and I found one. My husband is the polar opposite in a lot of ways, but I suppose it's very worth it to say the good points that my father had, I think I can see them in my husband. There, even on some level, there is a little bit of similarity there, but not the bad stuff, thank God. Right.
Okay.
So you have to be careful of your behavior because your kids will be searching for somebody who acts like you. And that'll impact their families, just like what you said, Professor Mia, and the communities that they're involved in as well. It's a ripple effect.
Yeah. And if the marriage is not going well, they would look for someone completely opposite, like you were saying. Right? Because
if they're smart, sadly, sometimes the cycle of abuse just keeps going and on because they keep on looking, for the same, over and over without even realizing it. There was just something about me that kind of knew it instinctively that I needed to find the opposite. And even as a parent now, I ask myself, if my father would agree with this, then I should probably do the opposite. And it usually ends up being the right decision.
Are you there, Mia? Are you back with us, you think?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me now?
Okay, yes. Because I know you are in association with marriages that end because of widowship.
Yes.
And could you tell us a little bit about that before we close our session?
Well, what happens with that is there's lots of organizations. One of them I hit here is where we have a lot of widows, and now we have lots of other single moms that come on that are single because of divorces, but they seem to be always having similar psychological issues. And what's happened, especially when it comes to a widow, when they lose their spouse, it's like they've lost themselves completely. I've had women that I have to counsel who don't even know how to address going to pay an account. How do I actually do this? I've never done it. He's always just taking care of everything every month. And they totally lost because the spouse is gone. So on the one level, you deal with the grief of losing the spouse, but on the other, it's almost like a lifestyle is gone. I don't know how to function anymore. And then you have, of course, then you have the single women who are from divorces, and that has majority of the time has got the power struggles between both of them for their kids, and then money issues, but that's a whole nother podcast altogether. But it's really sad because if I have to look at my mother, for example, I lost my dad like 2 months now, and it still breaks me every time. But when I think of my mom, it's where my strength comes from, because she was married to him for 50 years. I mean, the 50 years was their wedding anniversary, and 2 days later he passed on. And her functionality right now is it's almost like a rebirth of herself. I was there for that first couple of weeks, and I remember her clearly opening my door and leaving a cup of coffee next to me. And I woke up and she realized that was me. It wasn't my dad. So her routine actually had to just automatically change. It really alters the mind. It alters your being. It alters your life. And that is how sometimes marriage impacts you, and you don't even realize the impact it has on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one I will take the liberty of speaking, because I think sometimes my wife wonder why I prepare her for every eventuality, and always praying, of course, the eventuality doesn't come. But I always wanted her to know how to do absolutely everything, and she did just that. Maybe she wanted me to learn how to do everything too, and I did just that. So it's a two-way street, no doubt. But yes, I even before I met my wife, I knew how to wash and how to cook and how to clean and how to do every household chore and how to work. And I met my wife at work, so she knows how to work, how to cook, how to clean, and every eventuality. I think she knew how to drive before she met me. I learned how to drive. And we have all of these aspects of us coming on. But that widowship is very important. I'm going to take a pause break as we invite our guests and do a part B, because this is just too much to put in one podcast, okay? And I'll stay live. So hold on.
Sure. I would say good evening or
Hello. Welcome to Free Talk with MrB. We had to add a part 2 because this exciting conversation about marriage will continue. Joining us right now is our guest from Nigeria, who I think is going to really add to our conversation on widowship and how marriages come to an end consequentially by being single mom or being a widow. So, Sameena, if you would encourage us and introduce our guests.
Yes, absolutely. So here we have with us Ms. Beatrice Yesufu, who I have known as an author, a widow coach, entrepreneur, a very inspirational public speaker, and an award winner, of course, for the kind of work she's been doing. We're very proud of you in terms of what you're doing. Ms. Beatrice, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm sure we look forward to learning a lot from your experiences and sharing the same with our audience as well. So on the show today, we also have Professor Mehreen Mia from South Africa, as well as Ms. Dedra Stevenson, along with Mr. B and myself, Sameena Khanam. Yes, so we were just in a conversation on one of the nuggets of Art of Giving Back from Mr. B's book. So it says, how does marriage give back to the community? While we were just giving our own perspectives, and I was just grabbing a lot of learning from their conversation. I would like to hear from you. What do you think in terms of how a marriage gives back to the community?
Thank you so much, and it's my pleasure to be your midst this evening. My name is Beatrice Yesufu. I based in Nigeria, in Nigerian. Well, the topic before us this afternoon about marriage and community. If you look at the word family, we say families are the blocks of civilization. They are personal relationship, but they greatly shape and serve public good. Why? Because before you get married to your spouse, possibly you are staying in the same community, or in the same village, or in the same country, or not even in the same country. or not even in the same village, or not even in the same, or the other, something bring you together, and there's a mutual relationship that compel you to come together and resort to marriage, whereby two people become one. Now, as long as they are becoming husband and wife, they find themselves in community where they grow up, community. The fact that they have become together as husband and wife, they themselves, they have become an entity of themselves, find themselves in a group of that can be of help, they be of help to society. It is vice versa. Each community has their culture, their ways of life. So individual or a grow in the community where they find themselves, they have to give back to community in such a way their lifestyle, their community, and the culture. A lot of people have our different community where we belong to, whether from our origin or where our find ourselves, we associate ourselves with other people around us. We want to live a dignified life, a marriage that is responsible. A man wants to be responsible for his family, likewise, wife wants to do a part to make sure the family is sustained.
Yes.
Eyes looking up to them in the community where they find themselves. We don't want our marriage to break. We want to be able to bring up responsible children who will be useful to the family, to the community we find ourselves. There are many ways that you yourself, you may not even know those that are looking up to you in the community where you find yourself. How you compare yourself matters. So the way at which your family give back to community, how you are able to bring that up your children, how do people see you? Do they see you as responsible couple, a couple that are dutiful, a couple that serve God, the couple that also respond to the needs of community? All of these are in together as family grow. As they grow older, the younger one begin to see the older family, the older couple, as people they can run to for help. Not necessarily financial help, it may be in terms of counseling, in time of, how do we do this? Oh, couple is a bit, they are not finding it funny in their home. Oh, there is a family in the community. They have been together for 30 years. We respect them in such family. Can even call such couple, younger ones, encourage them, strengthen them, and be a kind of a counselor in the community where.
So Beatrice, that sounds like giving back. That's the main thing. It sounds like giving back. When we try to talk about giving back and the many ways of giving back, that definitely sounds like giving back. You know Mia.
Yes.
I think you guys know each other.
We have done work together. Yes, we have.
Yeah,
yes.
Is it in the widows and an orphan single mom arrangement also?
I think it's a loony.
It's our Ladies of All Nations international group, and then Beatrice and I had also shared a platform where we gave a speech on, I think it was empowerment of women. I think at some point we've done 2 or 3 things, so I can't quite recall. But one of the magnificent women here who really show, especially the single, and I'm saying single, be it widowed or divorced women, the power of how to actually manage and get through, especially in Africa. It is a problem because culture does not accept. And the stigma to women is also very, very rife.
Sameena?
Yes, I think the acceptance, I would like to say that the acceptance for a single mother or a widow is the same across the globe. No matter which culture it is, there are a lot of hardships the person needs to face from the community itself. And we, as individuals who are privileged for whatever we have in our lives, I think we should step forward like Ms. Beatrice and Professor Mia are doing in terms of, helping these single mothers or the widows be employed and able to live a sustainable life on their own, an independent life on their own. Otherwise, they do go through a lot of hardships
Yeah.
from no matter what culture it is. Yes.
Dedra, did you meet Beatrice before?
No, I haven't met you before, Beatrice. It's very nice to hear your views, though. And I think, you made a lot of interesting points. I think you were late to hear some of the things I said about, how marriage can be a great influence on society if it is a healthy, successful marriage that, sets a good example, for how marriage should be. But there are some instances, where people set a very bad example, and it's probably better that they're not, they don't remain married at all, and they would be healthier and a better, contributor to the community should they separate. That's my viewpoint, and I think, again, I'll say that even on an individual level, I think that people who are married and who are in a happy, healthy, strong marriage, they benefit, individually because they help each other become the best version of themselves. I mean, how do you feel about that? Would you agree?
and I don't know if, okay, Beatrice.
To Beatrice, you guys know that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there
go
is
ahead.
just one thing, I think, Mr. B, if we could just ask Beatrice, and the only reason I'm pointing this out is because she's really good in this field as well, and I commend her for it, is when we talked about, Beatrice, you weren't here earlier, but we did talk about children and the impact marriages have on children and what children take with them into communities from the marriages themselves. So Beatrice knows, for example, if you're coming from a widow or a single mom background or a marriage background, the impact these children have and what happens to them in their mindset. If she could just give us a little bit of her ideologies of what she thinks about marriage and its impact on the children, and from the widowship and the children, and what she's experienced in her country.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The world we find ourselves now, as I discussed earlier on, that is how it should be. Family should give back to the society, to the community. But is that what we are experiencing now? To be frank with you, that is not what we are experiencing now. I want to talk in the widowhood perspective, the ideology. Now I discover from my findings and from my experience with thousands of widows in my community, at least in my platform, we discovered that family are not ready to give back positive things to the younger generations. Why? Because people in the family that were back, a family that is bereaved, they lost their son is the husband to a woman with children. But instead of them to show her love and bring her to themselves as their daughter and contribute to how she's going to raise her children, we discover it is the same family that are raising hands against the young widows. She killed her husband. She cannot take care of the children. Take the children from her. Take the property from her. Take the company from her. Take this from her. That is what we are getting from the family today.
Mm-hmm.
The family that's supposed to be a supporting system to the young one. Some, you cannot even approach them. Some are not even ready to give back. In the aspect of widowhood, when a man died in Africa, in Nigeria where I live, 75% of the family, they always go against the widow. They will lay one allegation or the other. That's one. Secondly, after the bereavement, after the burial, You don't see family again. You don't see others' children. Can I contribute to the school fees or how they live? Personally, as a person, for the past 11 years, I'm not complaining. My children are doing well by the grace of God. I've not seen any of my in-law. They have not come to look for us. Yes, the elderly person will call me every Christmas and he'll send prayer message to me. I appreciate him a lot. But the other ones, I don't see them. That is, it asks 1,000 widow. How many times has your family, your relative, your husband relative come to look for you? One is only one of 1,000 you will hear yes from. So my conclusion is family are not giving back to the community as they ought to be.
So I must say why we have this conversation. Sameena, then Dedra, maybe?
Yes, absolutely. I think she has said it very strongly, and it's a very valid point which she has brought up, that it's the family who needs to support the individual when her husband has passed away or has moved on or whatever it is. But the family, like she said, 1 in 1,000 would only do that in terms of being a support system. Otherwise, they are just blaming the lady for everything. We
Very
see that a lot
discouraging.
from India as well, from where I come from. There's a lot of such behavior seen in different castes and communities across India.
Well, I see this problem too. I mean, the thing is, women need to support each other a lot more than they do. And I've often said this, that women hurt each other more than a man could ever hurt them, actually, especially the older generation. Can hurt the younger generation in a devastating way if do not support them, and they don't back them up, and try to understand the particular difficulties that they're going through in today's world, in terms of marriage and family life, and it's not always the woman's fault for every single thing. I mean, we need to have each other's backs a little bit better than we're doing. I think it's getting better, but it's still, there's a long way to go in terms of that. I mean,
and I must say, because of having gone on the stage and speaking about women empowerment, these are good subjects to bring up, because it somehow need to keep saying it. As a support structure, we need to keep saying it over and over and over again, like Beatrice does. Why do we need to look at it that way? I am a product of a single mom. My mother was a single, God rest her soul, bless her soul. She died at 73. She worked hard at raising the family and the children on her own. It did not mean that I needed to turn out like what someone would expect. I wanted to turn out even better, way better, and I behaved better. I can't say everything for every sibling, but I knew I could speak for myself. But what I want to do, or what I think I should do, is perpetuate the notion that my mother did the best she can with the circumstances that she had. And this reason why we're talking about marriage is to help see that the relationship could be severed by one means or another, whether a spouse dies, whether they separated their relationship, or when you look at it even from someone coming into the relationship, that they should not be in fear of what could happen, knowing that they could learn all these lessons from us giving back. And that we can remind the world that we must support each other. Us men must come on and support each other by way of at least having these giving back conversations about about how we can form the world by forming our relationships, not condemn it, not give it back.
Yes.
I have something else to say. I want to add this. I think that mothers need to look at this as well. You need to raise good sons. You need to raise sons that respect women. I mean, I can say this 100% with 100% certainty. In my household, my boys respect women. They've been taught to be good to women. Any woman who ends up with them is going to be a lucky, lucky gal, because they know that if they get caught doing something wrong towards their wives, they're going to have me to answer to. Really, because the mothers need to understand that they really are influencing future generations of men. When you raise your sons and you let them get away with, disrespectful behavior, that is going to turn into a pattern over and over again for generations to come. So it stops with the kids. And that's where you have to put the young. That's where it will end.
The programs to the schools to teach the boys and the girls at a younger age what exactly behavior ought to be like to respect each other's gender. We've taken it to school now because sometimes it's not even coming from a home. But I just want to also add to what Mr. B said. Yes, there are issues that come up, especially as Beatrice said, after somebody or your spouse has passed away, the families are never there for you or the children. But there's also the one little issue that happens in a marriage, and that is when people family niggles in your marriage while you are married, which influences your marriage. And that has a huge impact on your relationship. And if you are not strong enough in your bond with your spouse, and you easily influenced by be it family or anyone else against your spouse, and that alone is going to be problematic for you. So we also need to make sure that that is something we probably speak about, but also we need to be cognizant of, because influences from family to try and create further issues, or when jealousy sets in, when nastiness sets in, and that's just a norm. It does happen. I counsel women and families out of this all the time, which is it's really sad. It's a sad reality that is our.
Yes.
Go ahead, Sameena. Go ahead.
Yes, I completely agree with what Professor Mia is saying. There's a lot of influence which happens from the family itself, leave alone the society, which comes later. Inside the home itself, there's too much happening for some couples, and it's very, very sad. And they need to have a very strong bond with each other, and the trust and the expectation from each other, and the relationship has to be very, very strong. I just like to add that, when we're talking about these women who have progressed too far in life and have passed the age of getting a job or something, I remember talking in a session where we talked about getting back to career, where we talked about companies who are employing widows and single mothers, who are giving them an opportunity. Because once you take a break for maternity, or once you take a break for some time from your career, it's very difficult for the corporate culture to accept the lady back into the system. But I think some companies are increasingly opening up to it, and I wish more do soon, inshallah.
Can I chip in something there? Do not know what? There are some places in Nigeria, once they know you are a widow, no more job. In fact, last week, someone lost her husband. A lady lost her husband. That was in January. Okay, they buried the man in January. Okay, she need money to take care of her children. She resumed job in March. She was sacked. Do you know the reason why the manager or the director said? She said, "I am afraid that you are a widow in my organization. I don't want another person to become a widow or myself become a widow. So I don't like that kind of a thing." She sacked her.
So sad. Very sad.
When you say you are a widow, you may not even get a job. You may not even get house to stay. That is how bad it is in Nigeria. A widow comes to look for a house, no house.
Because that's shame. That's shameful treatment, honestly.
Yes,
that's not okay.
That is exactly what happens in Africa. So that is what we are trying to canvass against. Widows should be our friend. There shouldn't be any discrimination. A woman is a woman, irrespective of whether our spouse is no more. We should live together as a community. Let's love spring around. Let us show love to one another.
Yeah,
because
I'll say amen to that.
Absolutely.
I think the media in America has played a big part on, spinning that very differently for widows in the US. I mean, when you look at movies that portray women, getting a fresh start, there's all this inspiration and, all these feel good movies and TV shows about this kind of stuff, in the US. I think that played a big part in changing the image, of a single woman on her own, or a widow, or, a divorced woman or something, but it's so maybe that is part of what has to happen, in other places. I don't know. I mean, perhaps the media needs to.
Yes, I'm thinking of that. Whether we should start something to be projecting the challenges that widow face in a drama, in a form of a play, in form of drama, in form of movie. I'm writing a step on that as well, because if women, if every widow in my community will speak exactly what they face, we have so much to watch. Yeah. Honestly, the drama is so much.
Quite factually, we do need to have the conversation. We need to keep the conversation going. And keeping the conversation going, that's an example of what we do here on Freetalk. And we do plan to have another session next week because we get so much feedback. We want to address things over a 2-week period. So we will bring this subject up again next week. This week, we end up having part 1 and part 2. And it was so wonderful to have you on, Beatrice. So, and please, you guys forgive me my informality because I'm always very informal. Mia, we appreciate you. We know you have communications issue and electricity issues in your country at this time. And so rolling blackouts are part of the world norm nowadays. But I really, really appreciate the subject. Again, coming from the home or being brought up by a single mom does not mean that the topic of marriage was obsolete. I saw it as a learning platform, and I took it in my own way, in my own life, to set a path where, again, I am married for 40 years now. I'm 60 years old, so I got married quite early, and I don't plan to go anywhere. So if it sets an example, it's good. But at the same time, I'm free to talk about the subject, to take away the stigma of places in Africa, to take away the stigma of places in India, to take away the stigma of places in the world, to show that it's an unsuccessful story. It's a successful story because we still produce children in those marriages, whether a solid one, a not so solid one, a broken one by widowship, a broken one by separation or divorce. All these things we face. And as we face them, we must highlight that we can still produce wonderful, wonderful results. And it's the ones who we least expect anything good out of. I think my Facebook or my note said that either Oscar Wilde or someone quoted it. Those are the ones that we can find something exceptional from. We do not know who is going to become brilliant in the world in any relationship. And so I think marriage gives back to the community. Families give back to the community. Relationships give back to the community. And regardless of what that relationship turned out to be, whether a spouse passes away, becoming a widow, or separated, becoming a single mom, or even if they stay together with an aggressive situation or a good situation, it still defines the world. And we're going to continue to talk about this subject into next week. We will post these podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to also place the program on YouTube and keep doing it again next week. We'll try and get, I think, a couple on next week for them to talk to us as a feedback. And I want to thank all of you for being on the program, because it's just one way, like the way you do Beatrice, like the way you do Mia, the way you do Dedra and Sameena. You all are bringing out these subjects, and we're not in fear of bringing it out. So I really, really thank you all for being on Free Talk with MrB.
Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to voice some things which we may not have ever voiced if not for this platform.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's great. And thanks for
Yes.
giving me the chance to be the devil's advocate always.
Thank you so much, Mr. B, for giving me even the chance to speak with all these phenomenal women. I feel honored. God bless you
Thanks.
all.
Mia, you're good?
Nice to meet you, Beatrice.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
ma'am.
Thank
It was
you.
lovely
We look
speaking
forward.
with
We
you.
look forward.
To be. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, and so
Alaikum
we'll
salam.
see you all next week, and we'll talk about I think it was Ramadan time, was it? Coming
Not
up?
yet.
It's coming up. So
Not
we'll
Not
talk about our
yet,
time. We'll
no.
talk about our timing and
Oh.
let our listeners know if we adjust our time because of that event, that
Exactly.
significant month of fasting. All right. So thank you so much, and look forward to talking to you all again. See you all soon.